If everybody's ready, I'll call this meeting to order. And before we do anything, could you, we're going to have an explanation of the voting from Jewel.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. The CIP committee will be voting on the CIP items. The Finance Committee members do not have to vote on the CIP items. All committee members will vote on approving the agenda and adjourning the meeting. And Chairman Sultan will open the meeting and adjourn. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to the first action item. Approval of design services task order, Howardsville wastewater treatment plant and drain field design.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Amulya Paudel, Program Manager with the Capital Programs Group. I am here this morning to seek your approval of a design task order from the Howardsville wastewater treatment plant and drain field design. This project is a partnership project with the county. Loudoun County has a community water and wastewater program that aims to address community water and wastewater needs in unincorporated parts of the county. In 2015, Loudoun Water and Loudoun and the county reached a memorandum of understanding which outlines roles and responsibilities for each of the entities. We have several projects currently ongoing under this partnership program. One of them is Howardsville wastewater system, extending wastewater services to Howardsville. The service agreement specific to Howardsville was signed in 2020. And I also want to note that all of Loudoun Water's cost, design cost and consultants cost are reimbursed by the county on this project. Location, Howardsville is a small community located southwest of the county. We currently already have a operation here. We serve the residents, and I'll be talking a little bit more about this in the next slide. Some backgrounds here. The community is, it's a small community, 14 lots within the approved service area boundary. The project was structured in two phases. Phase one installed low pressure collection system in 2022, which immediately allowed the homeowners to connect to the system. And for the last 2.5, 3 years, we've been hauling that wastewater to the Broad Run plant for treatment. Phase two of the project, which is this task order we are here to get approval today, is to install a permanent wastewater treatment system for the community. And over the last 2.5 years, we've been collecting flow data from this site, which will help us appropriately select the treatment system that fits the need and also size it appropriately. The exhibit here to the right, so this is the existing tank from where we haul the wastewater to the central treatment plant. On this task order here, primarily the goal, the scope is to design, permit a new treatment plant and drain field, and also for consultant to provide bid phase services when we are ready to bid the project. We have selected Dewberry engineers for the project. Dewberry is one of the community systems, one of the consultant we have community systems basic ordering agreement contract with. Dewberry brings a lot of experience designing and permitting a facility like this, both in the county and for other localities in the state. We looked at Dewberry's performance on past projects. Dewberry was the engineer of record for the first phase of the project that installed the low pressure system. We confirmed their staff availability. So taking on all this into consideration, we agreed that Dewberry is most suited for this project. At a high level, the tasks, the activities in this project, we kind of group them into 4 categories: project management, design phase services. So it primarily includes design of the plant, the drain field system, site plans, and finally preparing the bid-ready documents and specifications, cost estimating, making sure constructability reviews. So those are kind of design elements involved in this project. Several different permits needed, potentially a Army Corps, a wetland permit from Army Corps, and some DEQ permits, Loudoun County permits, and also Health Department permits on this project. And like I said, bid phase services towards the end of the project. As bid questions come up, a request for information, consultant would also provide that service under this task order. If no questions, I'll move to the next slide.
I had a question.
Sure.
The amount of effluent to be treated, at one point, there wasn't enough, and that gave rise to the pump and haul. She's saying no.
Oh,
Now, the project was always designed to be in two phases. So the first phase would just be the pump and haul. So we could determine how much flow there was going to really be and what the nutrient loading looked like. That was always the plan. So it wasn't that there wasn't enough. It was that we wanted to be able to right size the treatment facility and select the right technology.
Okay. And that's what this is.
So this is the
Got it.
design task order to do the treatment facility
Okay.
now.
Could you back up a couple slides? I'll make this really quick. This is, go back one more, maybe one more. There. This is a wastewater treatment project. But when you're showing all these different things out in the rural area, we get updates on the community systems, but those other facilities, are you just pointing out for, what reason are you pointing those out for?
oh, this is just like a snapshot of our central system and all the systems that we operate.
Okay, but like Western Loudoun Sheriff Substation, Sheriff Station, right here, the blue dots are purple. What are those?
Mr. Yudd, if I may, this is a standard map of our community systems that we either own and operate, or we contract operate for the county. So that a number of those blue dots, the Western Loudoun Sheriff Substation and others, are sites that we contract operate for the county. And
Okay.
the blue is signifying that those are water only sites.
Okay, the last week or whatever meeting we had, when was that? Was that last week? Our board meeting for November, we had a little bit of an update on groundwater. And I realized it's this context right now today, we're talking about one wastewater treatment facility and moving forward with that. But the aspect of groundwater and the area that we serve, when I saw this, I thought, you know what, it's probably a little bit bigger. There's a little bit more to the story than that. And then later, after the board meeting, I was at another meeting, and the discussion of the Waterford Paonian Springs interconnect came up. And so this map is actually really helpful, because if someone were to say, and one of our colleagues who might be online but is not present today, felt like that area is really not our responsibility, maybe to go lightly there, because it's not really our problem to solve. If you applied the rural interconnect concept that Waterford and Paonian Springs are moving forward under a policy guidance, then our area of impact in the rural area is really a lot larger. And so that map was really helpful for that. And I'm sorry to divert the conversation from the project at hand, but I just want to make that point, because we're always trying to remind people of our service areas and our responsibilities. So thank you.
Where does this rank on the number of units per being served? It just seems 14 lots is
So,
on the small side.
currently, I think we are serving 6 properties that are connected to the system.
No, I'm thinking back on the overall map of the entire
Oh.
community systems outside of the central service area. Is this one of the smallest, the smallest,
I think so. On the wastewater side, this probably is the one of the
This is one of the smallest.
the smallest?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a question, the blue dots again, what's our involvement with the water, with the blue dots?
So Mr. Kelly, those are generally Loudoun County facilities. You can see some of them are fire and police stations and so
Uh-huh.
forth. So we help the county operate the wells that serve those facilities.
Do you maintain the wells or just
We contract operate. the
contract
facility and-
operate? Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So after selecting Dewberry as design consultant, we negotiated with the consultant a design fee. What I have here for you is a high-level breakdown for the purpose of this presentation. But I mean, we put a lot of effort on this. It's built from the bottom. That we go into like granular details to justify these fees. In the end, this is $346,000 is what we found acceptable. And just for comparison purpose, the estimated planning level estimated construction cost for the project is about $2.5 million, which equates to about 13.8% design fee. Typically on a greenfield facility construction like this, we see the fee ranging from 10 to 15%. When a project is relatively small like this, just because of some base cost, project management and stuff, the percentages tend to be on the higher side of that range. And Greenway Engineering will provide the drainfield design services. So there is some sub-consultant component of the work on this task order. And I can take a pause if anybody have any questions.
I have a question. Looking at this, I see there's two design elements. One that looks like it's associated with the sub-consultant. So there's the 160K design spec cost. Can you explain the differences? Why there's two design elements?
The reason we have it separated out is drainfield design is entirely designed by Greenway Engineering. It's a consultant that's a sub-consultant to Dewberry. So because their fees were developed separately, we thought it makes sense to just present that information as a separate line item. And the design spec cost, the second line item there is all Dewberry's work. They will design the plant, all the instrumentation and control, electrical systems, everything else except the drain field. So just because it's two different consultants, we thought it makes sense to show that as a separate line item.
Who is the sub-consultant?
Greenway Engineering. No further questions. I'll move to the next slide. We anticipate this design to be about 10 months, followed by about 4 months of bid phase. And then construction itself, we anticipate about 12 months. So the goal is to go into operation by the end of 2027. And so we've been tracking this project in our CIP plan under COM 70. Again, the driver here is the service agreement that we have with the county, and the 10-year budget allocated last year is $1.84 million for design and construction. And this is my last slide before the motion, so I'll take a pause for any additional questions. If not, Mr. Chairman, I have the motion in front of you.
Are there any other questions? I'll read the motion. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the Howardsville wastewater treatment plant and drain field design project to Dewberry for $346,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $363,300. Additional costs will require board approval, and I'm recommending that this go to the board consent agenda. Do I have a second?
This is Jim, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? No. Okay, thank you. Let's move to the second item.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here to seek your approval of a design task order for the North Lower Cyclone Sewer Pump Station Upgrades Project. Real quick, this project is in the outskirts of the central system. The pump station is located within the compounds of within the trap rock treatment water treatment facility. This here is an up-close view of that of the station. The station was commissioned in 2018 along with the treatment plant. The installed capacity of this pump station is 2 million gallons per day. It was primarily intended to convey waste stream from the plant, but it also did have some excess capacity to handle flow from off-site. Like I said, the installed capacity currently is 2 million gallons per day. 2019, JLMA got added to Loudon Water's service area, and for the last 5-6 years, we've been working on multiple different things to extend our service to the JLMA area. This is a high-level overview on the wastewater side. We recently, they're still not finally completed, but we've reached substantial completion on 2 pump stations. JLMA West Pump Station now pumps sewage into North Lower Cyclin. Similarly, Goose Creek Pump Station now pumps flow into North Lower Cyclin. And like I said, North Lower Cyclin itself is not like a huge pump station. Its installed capacity is 2 million gallons per day. The projections that our planning department has for North Lower Cyclin is, like you see here, 2028, about 1.7. By 2031, we expect that flow to go up to 3 million gallons per day and potentially 6.5 million gallons per day by 2033. So there is some immediate near-term needs at this station, and this is what we're trying to accomplish with this task order here, is to upgrade the North Lower Cyclin pump station.
A quick question. The properties that are shaded in tan and black, is there any significance to those being shown that way? And I guess I should say one of those properties is owned by my employer. So I know an awful lot about it.
The one shaded black, I can tell you that's a property we have signed a non-disclosure agreement with. So whenever I prepare like a screenshot, that's how our GIS displays. The other one, I think that's just, I used one of the exhibit that I was using to create this. So there, I was just trying to gauge the acreage. So it doesn't really carry any particular meaning there.
Like if you look at the red line on the left side of the screen going up to the Lower Cyclin or JLMA West pump station, the property immediately to the west is the existing FedEx distribution facility. And then that black line is Cyclin Road. And just from a topography point of view, it sort of falls off down towards the Greenway. And so if you were sewering those properties, are they served by that, where they connect to that pump station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, currently, this JLMA West Pump Station, all these areas you see here is within the sewer shed for that pump station.
Okay. And just there's no significance.
No, that was just like me
Okay.
trying to calculate the acreage there.
Thank you.
Just for a point of awareness, the main trunk sewer heads west from that JLMA West sanitary pump station toward the village at Clear Springs. Just again, a point of awareness for, how other properties will be sewered along that corridor headed to the west.
Mr. Allen has a question.
Thank you, Jewel. It's kind of a dumb question, but how are we going from 1.7 million, we're basically doubling in 3 years the flow and then doubling again in another 3 years? Is it all just growth in the JMLA?
Yes, Mr. Allen, you're talking about projected flows, right?
Correct.
It is. It's driven, again, Darren is here and provide more insight to it, but this is based on estimates, making certain assumptions on what kind of facilities would come up in this area. Darren, do you want to chime anything?
I just thought it was like data center mostly, so I'm just confused as to why the flows maybe 1.7 MGD is tiny. So going from 1.7 to 6.5 is really not that big, but I'm just trying to grapple with the scale of those percentage increases.
It's projected growth in the region, and this pump station eventually serves all of the village of Clear Springs off to the west that you don't see on this map. The areas kind of in that shaded area there, those are mostly data centers that have a high potential for flow into our sewer system in addition to water demands. So there's just simply a lot of growth here that wasn't originally anticipated with when Trap Rock went in.
Thank you.
I have a question, which is, I see Sickling Creek flowing from the southwest to the northeast and at its confluence with Goose Creek, sorry, thank you. And then Goose Creek flowing from south to north. I see 6 pump stations. I don't see any gravity systems, any studies of gravity systems, either on Sickling Creek or on Broad Run. And I was wondering if there have been studies that are just looked at and shelved and gravity was not a solution, but it seems to me that we continue to play 6, 7 pump stations in a row and no gravity systems, and it just kind of goes against logic.
I will say we have looked at various gravity systems here. At some points, it's difficult to get under the creeks without going to excessive depth. Part of it is also just the phasing of the construction that we see coming in, the development, and the need to serve that in that process. We do have a potential pump station there, kind of shown in the right spot, that could serve more of that area by gravity that we're still reviewing. That's technically not, that's within the Luckstone property. So it would take some work to get something there. And we aren't even sure if that will develop. This is still an area that has had a lot of continual change. So it's taken a bit to respond to it.
And one of the things I can add to that, Mr. Vega, is the deepest wet well that we have in our system is JLMA West, which is almost 50 feet. So, I mean, there's that operational comfort level. You don't want to go more deeper than that. So we did look at that. And some of this, when you look at where we have to be to cross Goose Creek, and then you look at the wet well depth you need, you start to exceed that comfort level of how deep you want your, and then operational efficiency, right? So we did look at that. There is some effort underway reviewing if there is something we can do down the road. But for now, I think the most cost efficient solution per se is this is what we.
Mr. Vega, if I may, I think you've brought this point up on one other occasion, and I do think it's a worthy one. And I do think there's a lot of complication as to phasing and how all of this came together and other wheels that were already in motion when other things hit in terms of the planning. But I think we owe it to ourselves to now take a step back and look at what has come together here and really try, nothing more document for ourselves, why we made the decisions we made. And at this juncture in time, can we diverge from that path? And would that make sense? I do think it's a really good suggestion.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, it seems from a long-term master planning that, yes, we made certain decisions to do pump stations at points in time because of development at that time.
Right.
But as we're looking at a sewer shed or a watershed, it seems like there should be some long-term master plan that looks to probably decommission maybe a handful of these pump stations and replace it with a gravity system.
Correct. And I do, Darren kind of touched on that point as well. Like we have gotten to a point internally where we're seeing some other development. You mentioned the Luckstone property there. And, you see the 3 tiers of phased projected flows for this station. And we are actively looking at that third phase, that ultimate stage. Does that really make sense at North Lower Sicklen, or can we consolidate, eliminate, 1 or more of these pump stations and transition more to gravity? So that is actively ongoing. You're welcome.
I'll just mention also that we currently have a wastewater master plan that we've started on, and it'll be wrapped up sometime next year. And that's one of the goals of that. As was just mentioned, so much in the JLMA has come so fast, and we had a lot of, plans to put infrastructure in place prior to the JLMA even being part of our service area. So we feel like that there's been a little bit of a shotgun approach to what we have out there right now. And so that's something definitely that as we're doing the master plan, we're going to look to determine, can more gravity be installed? It is difficult. There's a lot of topography out in that area. There's a lot of creeks to get under. We do try to cap the depth at which we run gravity sewers. So there certainly will be some pump stations that will be in the future. Can we condense some and minimize some? We certainly hope so. We don't want them any more than anybody else does. Yeah.
For my understanding, is there certain, I'm assuming there's certain amount of cost savings or efficiency associated with going to a gravity system. What's relative? Is there any type of percentage we'd look to obtain by doing that?
Nah,
To the experts, but when you have a pump station, you're maintaining it in perpetuity. You can't take your eye
I know
off
it's just,
of it.
just curious as to if
Gravity
there's any
to me
studies.
seems like,
Okay.
it's not that you don't maintain it, but the frequency of maintenance is a little bit.
No, I understood. I'm just curious if there's any,
I don't know of any rules of thumb offhand, but as Mr. Vega was just pointing out, you certainly have all the maintenance costs associated with a facility, and then you have the operations, the electrical bills and all of that. So there certainly is, and as part of, I don't know if we have it in our scope for the current master plan, but we would do an economic analysis of if we were proposing gravity to remove some pump stations. We certainly would do that analysis to understand what the financial costs would be and the benefits of doing it. That would be part of our standard engineering analysis that we would do. Yeah. So we could maybe, when we get there, we'd be happy to share that with you if you're still interested at that time.
Mr. Vega, I can give you one example of where we actually are doing like what you're suggesting right here. This is an existing Belmont Glen pump station, right? So currently Russell Branch pump station is in construction. So by the time this is operational, we are diverting this flow from here towards that bigger pump station in gravity, and we will decommission this pump station. So so this is an example of how when the new infrastructure gets built, we are looking at taking steps like this. So the scope of work included in this task order, it's design, permitting, and bid phase services to increase the North Lower Cyclone pump station to 3.2 million gallons per day. Key components, design components on this task order is we will need new pumps, some process mechanical and instrumentation and control upgrades. Currently, this pump station does not have an emergency storage tank, but moving forward, because most of the flow will be coming from off-site, we will need an emergency storage tank to comply with the DEQ regulations. And we are also looking at upgrading some odor control in this facility. And in addition, this is an actively operating facility, so maintaining existing operation would be key component of this design. We selected CDM Smith for this task order. CDM is one of the consultant we have environmental basic ordering agreement with. CDM also is the design engineer of record for this pump station and the treatment plant in whole. CDM brings a lot of experience on a project like this, both for Loudoun Water, a national level consultant. They do it all the time for many jurisdictions. We confirm that they have staff available to work on this project immediately. So based on these considerations, we selected CDM Smith for the project. Task order, the activities in this task order kind of similar to the previous presentation. It's grouped into 4 categories here: project management, design services on this one. Again, pump station upgrade design, site plans, potential site plan amendment with the county, preparation of bid-ready documents, cost estimating. We will need some geotechnical investigation for that emergency storage tank. The project will need with a couple different permits here from the county, from the state. And then bid phase services, again, when we're at that point where we're ready to advertise the project. So the total fee here, I have a high level breakdown for this presentation. Again, we build this from bottom up, go into granular details. And in the end, the fee of $575,000 is what we found acceptable for this task order. The geotechnical and surveying component will be performed by a sub-consultant. And for comparison purpose, the planning level cost estimate for this project is $6 million. And when you, which equates to about 9.6% design fee. Generally, we see 10 to 15, the range we see on a project like this, 10 to 15%. For this station, some provision was put in place with the original design, so we're kind of just below that 10%. But overall, we find this fee reasonable for the task order at hand. I can take a pause if anybody have any.
What did you say the ultimate size of this pump station is?
So after completion of this task order, it'll go from 2 to 3.2. But then the full build out, we need 6.5 MGD, and that's a separate effort currently underway to determine whether it makes sense to further go into like bigger expansion here, or maybe do a new regional pump station at a different location. So that's a different evaluation currently ongoing. So down the road.
I was just wondering if it pays to go to the ultimate size now rather than go in twice. Is that a reasonable assumption?
So this current project is within the existing footprint of the pump station. So it's not a new pump station. To go to 6.5, we're going to need either to build a new pump station or significantly expand this current one. So this interim step is a good step. It also gives us time to really like hone in on the flows in the area.
Schedule here, we anticipate the design and permitting phase to be about 15 months, followed by 4 months of bid phase. And the construction, we estimate about 18 months. So if you tie this back to our projected flow, I think we will be done at least a year ahead of where we think the projected need will be at around 2030. We've been tracking this project under West 71 in our CIP plan, and the 10-year budget for design and bid phase services allocated last year was $500,000. And this is the last slide before the motion, so I can pause for any. I have the motion in front of you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody want to?
Yeah, I'll read it. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the North Lower Sickland Sewer Pump Station upgrades to CDM Smith for $575,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $604,000. Additional costs will require board approval.
And I assume that goes to the board consent.
Yeah, consent.
Second, Jim?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Next item. 2026 proposed capital spending plan and review of 2026 to 2035 CIP. And all, what is it, 213 projects? I just want to mention, I went through that. I had questions on 9 of them, and staff, Darren and a bunch of people put together an answer that was absolutely beautiful. So I'd just like to thank them for that. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate those comments. So good morning, board members. We're here, it's almost Thanksgiving time, which for me always kind of reminds me of CIP season. So that's one of the things that's brought us here together today, right, is to review the CIP. You know, I say this on behalf of Darren and myself. I mean, we've been doing this for years and our process has been pretty similar, but it's really gratifying to present the CIP. I mean, it is the culmination of many months of hard work by many of the members of Loudon Water. I think we've estimated that probably about a third of the staff here at Loudon Water is involved in shaping this roadmap that we're going to share with you. And, it's a roadmap that's designed to sustain and strengthen our infrastructure services over the next decade. So we launched our process this year, I think maybe a little earlier than usual. We started in early August 8th, so over 3 months ago, starting to pull together the 10-year CIP. And, I think it does truly reflect the hallmark of our disciplined, continuous planning culture that we have here at Loudon Water. And, that's a culture that helps reinforce the reliability, the resilience, and the growth management that we and our customers have come to depend upon. And it helps ensure that we remain prepared for the future and helps us continue to deliver our excellent services today. So Darren and I are going to do this presentation together, although he's going to handle most of it. So I will hand it off to him in a little bit. Just a couple of little maybe housekeeping items. When Darren goes through the presentation, you can almost think of it as two separate presentations, and you can kind of see that in the title. The first presentation will be on the capital spending plan, which is, synonymous with the capital budget for next year. And at the end of the presentation today, you'll be asked to take action on that, the capital spending plan. But also then after that, there will be a review of the entire 10-year CIP, and that's just an informational item. So there will be no action asked of you all for the 10-year CIP, so just the capital spending plan. A couple of documents that were included in Diligent. I still refer to it as board docs, but it's Diligent. Along with the general write-up and the presentation that you've received, there also is a 2-page PDF document that has the 10-year CIP graph. There's 2 different versions of that one that shows sort of spending without any outside funding, and then the second one shows what the spending is with the outside funding. Not a big difference between those numbers, but there are 2 different versions of that. And then also there is a summary table. I think it's about 5 or 6 pages long that includes a summary of all of the projects that Mr. Sultan just mentioned, 213 of them in the overall 10-year CIP. A couple thoughts that when we think about our CIP and we think about its strategic value to us, I kind of want to just highlight 4 key dimensions. First is financial preparedness. By looking ahead 10 years, we're able to forecast more accurately, manage our debt more responsibly, and then maintain rate stability for our customers. So really the CIP helps us in that area of financial preparedness. Second, I think organizational readiness. Having a 10-year look forward helps us align our staffing and our resources so that we can deliver projects in the right time and in the right manner, with confidence. I think thirdly, there's a community impact of this overall CIP. Every project in our CIP is designed to either directly support growth, to help ensure that we have reliable service, and then advance sort of our water stewardship. So I think those impacts kind of rolled up into the community impact. And then finally, I think flexibility. Because we revisit and we reset our plan each year, it gives us the ability to adapt new priorities to emerging technologies, maybe some changes in regulatory. It allows us to basically do that as well. So I think those 4 dimensions really help us capture the strategic value of our CIP for us at Loudon Water. So just a few final takeaways before I turn it over to Darren. Again, the CSP, the capital spending plan, that's going to require action today. The 10-year review it's just for being comfortable with the planning tool to help provide context for the capital spending plan itself. Thirdly, I think the process that we go through, it's collaborative. We try to be very transparent. We certainly are very disciplined in the process that we've been going through. And I think that's what lends strength and credibility to our overall CIP. And then I think finally, having this 10-year plan, it really helps us be financially and organizationally prepared to meet the challenges and demands of the future. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. If not, I will turn it over to Darren and he will walk through this with you.
Thanks, Tom. So kind of as Tom alluded to, the process today, we'll focus in on the capital spending plan first. That's really what you're going to be approving. And then we'll review kind of the 5 and 10-year outlook. And then eventually what this does is this gets combined with the operating budget and presented to the board at the December meeting. And that's when you're asked to actually approve the budget. This is a plan, so it will flex and change through the year, but this really identifies all the needs, projects, the budgets for over 200 projects that we've identified for the next 10 years. We've walked through this with our individual people who created all these sheets and then with a management team that reviewed the priorities to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the entire organization. It's tough to compare certain aspects because they are so different. Is it cybersecurity or a vac truck? They're very different aspects, but we do walk through that with every project. And then we look at the overall plan and we noticed, right away that this is a more spending. And so we tried to look at, well, why is that? Or are we confident that that's really going to happen? And we noted that several construction and reimbursement projects, which are construction from a developers, we really think there's a high likelihood of those spending, and that really accounts for a lot of the increase. We'll also notice that the 5-year plan also increased, and we'll talk a little bit about how then we send that off to finance and let them review that. And just in general, one note, kind of as we move through this process, all the spending we show here is kind of net of any grants or outside funding. We don't have many there, but for instance, the county projects like Amelia just had with Howardsville, that's a funding through the county. So some of that spending, some of that cash has been taken back. So next I'm going to kind of sit and walk through all of our programs. This is how you would see it in the capital spending report. We look through our major programs and try and divide up the projects through that. There's some overlap between some of the projects where they may fit in more than one category. But for 2026, we were proposing to work on 157 different projects. Those include projects at our kind of treatment plants or supply with Broad Run and Potomac water supply. That also includes our reclaim system, all of our community systems. We lump administrative and facilities together. That includes projects that would fall under IT or operations technology in addition to the buildings and facilities that we have. We have water and wastewater projects. Those are your standard water lines, sewer lines, pump stations, tanks, and finance, which covers our debt service and other things. We'll use this kind of same color coding system throughout, and it will also be represented in those column charts. We break this down by project, and you can kind of see the project and the spend in all the different categories. The spending, you may see Potomac Water Supply only has a few projects, but high spending, that's largely the quarry. Some of the other systems have many more projects, but they're lower spend. And we're going to walk through kind of each of these general programs and talk a little bit about some of the sample projects that are in there. This isn't all of our projects by any means, and we could talk about any of them, but we'll kind of focus on a few of the larger projects to give an example of what's out there. So the next few slides will all look a bit like this. We'll highlight where it sits. So this is kind of our financial projects, and we'll talk a bit about a few of those example projects in the spending. And feel free to interrupt at any time if you have specific questions, but finance projects include kind of our capital funding where we pay DC Water, Fairfax Water for that service and maintenance. It includes debt service. It includes some of the routine developer reimbursements where we pay for oversizing. This is some of the smaller pieces, and then also capital projects. If we move into the water and wastewater category, this includes a lot of projects. It includes rehab projects. It includes new construction. A couple of the examples, and most of these projects that you're going to see have already come through the CIP committee and have been approved. A few might be new, but they include things where we extend the life of our existing facilities, like a tank rehab project or the manhole replacements. It also includes new construction where we're building, for example, the new pump station at Russell Branch. This is related to the growth in the JLMA and our whole western service area because we're upsizing that pump station to take those flows. It also includes a lot of new water and sewer mains out in that area. Any of the projects, if you look through the whole list, at some point you may see that bracketed R after it. That simply means that we are reimbursing a contractor or a developer for building that infrastructure for us. Some of that we take on ourselves, some of it we have contractors do or developers do just due to timing and ability to take on that level of work. If you look in their community systems and administrative facilities projects, community systems, the big project there will be the ammonia removal upgrades at half a dozen or so wastewater treatment plants. That will spend about 20 million next year, and then you'll see that again the next couple of years as we go through that upgrade. That's an example of kind of a regulatory driven project as opposed to growth or just simply rehab. And then in the administrative facilities, we're also doing some work to increase security. This includes laying a bunch of conduit, so the price is a little bit more, and some new equipment. We're also trying to get a hand in our busy county with all the different fiber and everything that's out there, that we make sure we know exactly where our easements are, and we're trying to get a better handle on mapping and documenting all of that.
Darren, the 20 million for the ammonia removal, that's net. So that's not including reimbursements from the county for like water. They're giving us the money for Waterford, for instance, and
that's Waterford.
Or are they not? Thought they were.
Not for this. This is strictly a regulatory requirement that we're doing and not related, or we're not getting reimbursed from the county for this. This project is at Waterford, but it's not being reimbursed by the county.
And in fact, Waterford, St. Louis, and Elijah, those three facilities are included in this single project. Okay. So we're out the cost on the ammonia, but then since we're upgrading it for the ammonia, we're also trying to combine that with the Paonian Springs thing, sort of, no? Right, there are elements of this ultimate facility at Waterford that may support the joint system. But these are happening independent of each other, so there's not actual overlap. Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. If we move on to the Potomac water supply, that's a trap, and right now the biggest construction there is at Milestone Reservoir. That's well underway, and we expect to continue spending at a pretty high rate through the next year. We're also then looking at the next phase of trap expansion, which will include design and some new equipment. And then we continue to work a lot at Broad Run. The site work was awarded this year, so that will be underway in heavy construction next year. And then we're still working on phase 3 expansion, and that will be mostly a design contract. So that's backwards. So as we look at all those different projects, one way we start to try and look at it through various different lenses and see how certain are we of the spending? How does this fit in with the rest of our plans? And if you kind of think about this, if you think about it starting in the kind of financial area there in that gray box at 3 o'clock or so, we know that's pretty much fixed spending. We don't have a lot of flexibility there. That's payments that we're going to make. It may not require a ton of resources on our side to track that spending, but it's going to happen. The stuff that's under construction already, we also figure that spending is going to happen. There's a chance that some of the construction could get delayed, but that spending that's pretty much underway and it's happening. We've looked at the developer or the contractor's schedules and planned spending and tried to work with them and work with us to make sure that that is a good number. And we also know that a number of projects will be transitioning into construction. These will be new ones that are going out to bid next year. We have pretty high confidence that those will occur. So a lot of our spending next year is high likelihood of spend. It's already under construction. There's a lot going on that would be hard to slow down. We also take our projects and look at them kind of as to what's driving this. So if you look at it just in terms of what we're spending, and here we've included the full spend that would include some of our reimbursed or outside funding that we get from the county. About 2/3 of our spend is related directly to growth. These are new facilities, new water mains. This is expansions of Broad Run. The quarry is in this. It's all to serve that growth in our system. And then the other cost related or the amount of spending we're doing on rehab and replacement, you could say that's roughly 20%. Some of that's also then compliance with future regulations. All of this adds up to what's really kind of behind most of our projects. So you can definitely see growth is still our big dollar value. But we also look at it just in terms of like the number of projects. And then you can see that renewal and replacement starts to dominate. And really a lot of our projects that we're working on out of that 157 we're planning next year are related to renewal and replacement. Some of them are still definitely growth. Others are kind of improving or replacing technology in our existing assets. So there's a wide variety of drivers. This is kind of a broad brush to look at why are we spending and taking the effort that we're doing. That's kind of a good look at our capital spending plan for 2026. I could pause, but next I'll kind of look at how this fits into the longer look at our plans. So we look at our 5-year and 10-year plans and try and see, well, how does the spending compare? Where do we go with this? If you look at those same program level reviews, our 5-year plan is about $1.2 billion, roughly $250 million a year. The spending is spread across all of those categories with a large amount at our treatment plants, specifically Broad Run. That project will cost a lot to build, but you've seen that coming. And then there's a lot of projects scattered through water and wastewater and finance. This is a mix of growth and rehab, but it's really what we're looking at in the 5-year plan. When we see a number like that, we think about it both in terms of staffing resources. Can we actually do this work? And so we review that closely, but then we also turn to finance and kind of say, well, how does this fit into our financial picture? And so I turn to Sally and she'll talk just for a moment about how they've reviewed this.
Yes, preliminary review of the plan does project borrowing in 2028 and 2029. The sizing and timing of this borrowing will obviously depend on actual results and over the next 2 years. We did make some assumptions in the overall plan, so we did reduce the spending to 90% for 2026, and then we 85% and 80% for the following years. So that's just based on how our actuals always come in a little under budget. So our next steps will be to consult with Davenport after the board approves the budget. And then we'll collect preliminary year-end numbers, and then we'll present the 5-year plan to finance in the first quarter of 2026.
So similar to how we walk through the capital spending plan, we'll kind of walk through some of the example projects, some of the significant projects that we have in the 5-year plan. If you look at our treatment plants, supply, these are some of our big dollar projects. They include construction and expansion at Broad Run. That will be the largest. We'll also have significant spending related to Potomac water supply through the Milestone Reservoir construction and Trap Rock's expansion out to 32. In our water and wastewater facilities, there are a number of different projects that will be happening. A number of these are related to the growth in our western part of our service area. We say this is JLMA, but it's really also the downstream infrastructure that's impacted. And it's really a lot of the growth just in the western part of our service area. So it's a lot of water and sewer mains. And then it's also upgrades to our pump stations. You can see there the North Lower Sickland station that Amelia just talked about. We're actually in our planning, we're planning that it will eventually get bigger. As we move through our master planning, we may adjust where that actually sits, but for now, that's where that cost is carried. If we also look at other projects that are related more to rehab and replacement and/or upgrades related to regulations, that includes all the ammonia removal projects. So that $20 million that you saw in year one, through the first 5 years, it's actually more like a $70 million price tag for those projects to meet those new regulatory requirements. And then we'll also be continually doing some water, sewer repair replacement to stay out ahead of that eventual time when we have to replace all of our pipes.
So that's 72 million over for the 4 community systems that were Elysian Heights, Waterford.
Yes,
I believe this, now that we're looking into the 5-year, I believe this includes that packaged project of St. Louis, Waterford, and Elysian. But then there are other wastewater facilities and community systems that must comply, but on a different time scale, and they're not being delivered in a package form like we are those projects.
They are.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This has always been one of those questions, but how inefficient is it or more expensive is it when we're doing these little package, Band-Aids all around Western Loudoun, and it seems like, I mean, they are Band-Aids in the short term, but then as these package plants and other things age and we've got to do things like this, it's like, wow, that's a lot of money for a very small number of customers, relatively speaking. And we don't control the policy of it. It's the Board of Supervisors. They ask us to go solve a problem or do a thing, and so we do it. But I bet the Board of Supervisors doesn't fully appreciate the additional cost associated with doing these little Band-Aids all over the place. And it'd be good for them to at least understand, like, this is over time, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, whatever it is, more expensive, long-term. And maybe it's a range, maybe there's no way to pin it down. That's okay too. But just so they understand that every time we do this, it's like, this is not fiscally, it's not a great thing.
I agree with Mr. Campbell. I mean, just looking at Howardsville alone, it's $131,000 per customer to provide them with sewer. How is that sustainable?
And for those community projects, does the Board of Supervisors reimburse us every step of the way and forever? Anytime we have to spend money on these projects? Or is that us?
No.
these are facilities we own now, so this is our cost to upgrade them.
Yeah, our customers are bearing the cost of the 72 million that you see there. The Howardsville is different. They're paying to build that facility, but then it'll be ours to maintain the cost going forward once they pay to construct it.
Thank you.
Tony, do you feel like the board appreciates that?
No,
Yeah.
certainly not. And I just have to have some more time to think about what the answer to the question was, which I think I understand it, but I don't know if it's right. The board's asking us to do this. I just want to better understand why they don't continue to pay for everything into forever, whatever's needed there, you know? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or is it just because the users in those communities are paying us rates?
Correct. The users are paying rates to operate the system. This board used to have a policy where each community system covered the cost of its own plant. In 2012, I believe it was, that policy changed where we went to one rate for all customers, except for some of the county-sponsored communities like a Waterford where they pay a flat rate. So the cost to maintain, repair, and replace is borne by all the customers of Loudon Water.
And I think that's problematic over time, especially as we keep doing this. You know, it was like, okay, there's a Raspberry Falls situation. But then it's like, oh, well, there's big Raspberry Falls called Percival and Hamilton and, all of this.
I almost feel like whatever that community, like just pick any of the community systems, whatever the rates that we receive from those individuals who are using it, great. We subtract that from what the county owes us.
I will say.
Not the rest of our ratepayers, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. I will point to the Luckett's Elementary School project that we just went to, where we assessed a revenue equalization fee, which was based on 40 years of O&M, but that wouldn't have accounted for a regulatory project like this that we had no insight on that is now costing us $72 million. So we do try to project operating costs, but projects like this that come from regulatory issues are hard to predict.
Just something I would like to think more on. Does any of my colleagues have any thoughts on that? I'm just curious, kind of what the board's thinking. Am I speaking crazy or what?
Going back, you could argue, if you were a historian, maybe the way the policies were set up, and I remember having this discussion with Mr. Hamas many, many years ago, that could be, those could have been taken as de facto growth management tools to be able to say, if you have a community system and those costs are only distributed amongst those customers, then that's the number of residents in that development, like Raspberry, Selma. Lena Run was one down on the 50 corridor before the policies allowed Central to extend into the transition area. So it was a convergent sort of the customer base of the Central systems did take over because the Central system moved west. But for the western area of the county, to be able to have a developer come in and do low bid, whatever, and then have that system, both water and sewer, operation of the wells, all the infrastructure for distribution, treatment on 400 houses or 300 houses, whatever it is, it's just never gonna work. And so I don't think the county will ever come back and say, ad infinitum, we're in for whatever it takes for Loudon Water's facilities to operate, age out, replace, maintain forever. They probably won't, because they don't do that for the Central system. They think it's on us. And I would say Tom's comments were really good at the beginning of this, because it is a very thoughtful process to figure out what your costs are going to be in such a deliberate way. But if you don't take into account what might be in front of you in terms of the finite resource of water that we have, whether it's what we have for the reservoir projects and storage. What if you don't have that? And then what happens I'm trying to always say at every meeting, what happens if you get picked up and have to take care of the rural area? And I think the exposure is greater than this organization has admitted to themselves. The light bulb hasn't fully gone on yet, because if you just use that interconnect concept that is at play right now in Waterford and Paonian Springs, that means the whole rural area could be interconnected with communal systems. Policies have called for communal systems for years, for more years than I've been involved in it. So that's 3 decades. So you do have exposure. We do have exposure because we will be the group that the county comes to. And that's not just management and the science of groundwater. That's the financial responsibility too. So I think maybe we should have more discussions on this to get ourselves ready for it.
Yeah, I think the county obviously controls policy for the West. And I think it's a bad policy, but that's fine. I'm not on the board. I'm not on the county. It's not under our purview here. My concern would be that we're getting stuck with the financial implications of their policy decisions. And my perspective is they should be stuck with the financial implications of their own policy decisions. In Hamilton, when we had a sewer problem, there's a special sewer tax service area. So it's on the residents, and they're the ones who elect their representatives. They elect their supervisors out west, and all of this is downstream or upstream from policy. So my concern is that Eastern Loudoun residents, or our organization as a whole, which has been managed very well, we're AAA rated, all of this, that's at risk because you're doing things out west that are super expensive, unsustainable, and you're doing it for policy reasons and really political reasons, that make people happy out there, but they're not good fiscal decisions.
So I agree with you, and look at the time period that we're talking about today to 2035. So in those 10 years, and this is a responsibility that we have to plan for those 10 years. This doesn't really address that and that exposure at extreme risk. So maybe we seize that opportunity to be able to say, here is the constants in our capital planning and our capital spending horizon. And it doesn't include the potential exposure for all of your rural Band-Aids. And while Band-Aids are needed, maybe this organization has to be assertive enough to say, back at you, for years, we have relied on your policy direction. However, your policy direction leaves some exposure for us. So I would say you're right, Vice Chair. And what do you want to do about it?
I think we should talk to the county. I mean,
Yeah.
if we need to talk about it more ourselves first, just so that we're all on the same page, that would be like the most immediate next step. But then once we're all on the same page, then I think we should talk to the county and go, look, this is creating a financial liability for our organization, and you guys control the policy. We don't have these issues with the politics like they do, but they just need to understand that's happening. And I don't think, as to the earlier point, I don't think they appreciate the ongoing expense, like with this ammonia stuff. It's so expensive for just a few customers, and it's just not a sustainable way to provide utilities to people.
I can tell you that they don't appreciate it. They don't see these numbers. It's not they don't see it in their CIP. They're not tracking our CIP. They don't think about this. They just give us the initial bit and think, because I've done it, and think, oh, we're good. We covered them. Everything's good. But yeah, there's ongoing cost. And Brian, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the feasibility study that we've been talking about. Would that be kind of maybe a way to throw this in there somehow?
I
And
think
maybe
so.
try and have this conversation with the
Yes,
county?
I was listening to the members talk. That's what jumped to mind. Alton, Mark and I are meeting with Mr. Hemstreet and Mr. Crobeth the week of the board meeting, I believe, in December to talk about next steps on the feasibility study. So I think this is certainly something that we would at least start with them and could get their staff's reaction and certainly bring that back to you all and kind of see if that helps form next steps.
I think that would be good. I don't know what the answer is, but we got to start talking about it because they definitely don't think about these additional costs that come down the road after they say, hey, can you do that? Thank you.
I wanted to add, I do think it may resonate in terms of initial conversations that we've had with county administration, in prep for the Western Loudoun discussion has been, a realization of the amount of CIP expense that the county's being exposed to in supporting the town. So I do think there are connecting points to the points that the board's making here this morning.
A couple of thoughts. In the past, we have, not very often, we've had a joint meeting between this board and the Board of Supervisors. We've talked about topics like this. Also, when our chair and vice chair go before the finance committee of the board, I think this is a topic of consideration. This should be brought up. And, maybe we set the stage years ago. We went to a central system rate for everybody. We took our Loudoun Water customers, charged them a little more to take care of people not connected. So that may have been part of the issue that they're not taking into account right now. But it's a very good point, and it's something that I think we got to get to it now because, as you said, 10 years from now, we could wake up and say, "Wait a minute, we're in deep trouble." So it's happening kind of slowly, little bit by bit. We got to kind of corral it, I think, and get that in front of the board as supervisors as quickly as possible.
Thank you for letting us have that conversation.
One last thought, if it's okay, if you guys don't mind. I know that the county has been trying to do a better job of advertising and having like kind of an open period each year for people to put in for community system applications for new ones. And so, this is something they're encouraging at the board level to have people put in for it. And so there's going to be more of this. So it just reinforces that we should have the conversation.
So you all really kickstarted the next slide here, where we were just going to highlight some of the partnership projects that we do have with the county under the existing MOU. As Amelia just mentioned in his prior presentation from 10 plus years ago. So current projects that we are tracking include the Paonian Springs, the Howardsville treatment, Waterford, and then other future feasibility studies. And then in addition to that, a little different would be the Broad Run Farms water main. These are all projects that the county is funding, but then as has been noted, become part of our system.
Hey, Darren, maybe I'll just add is that the Paonian Springs and Waterford, this ties into some of the questions. There isn't any money yet in our 5-year CIP for the construction of any of those facilities. We anticipate that Paonian Springs in the next 5 years should go into construction. We don't know exactly what that will look like. We're kind of a little hesitant to put any money in our CIP until the county actually funds it within their CIP. So it'll be fully reimbursed. And it would be one of those items that would show up in the outside funding, but it would also show up in our CIP as well. So we expect these numbers will, increase in the next several years as we get a little bit more understanding of what's going to happen in Paonian and Waterford.
Sorry to keep talking. Maybe there is, I just had a thought that maybe when we do something initial for the county like that and we build it, that we include some sort of percentage that you're going to give us each year after that. County, Loudoun County, you're going to give us 10% each year after whatever that cost was to account for, repair, maintenance, upgrades, regulatory, whatever it may be. So I don't know, just throwing out what I'm thinking. Thank
You know, this is interesting. What we're talking about is the way Fairfax Water came about. There was a bunch of individual water treatment plants with individual systems. And now I know it's many years ago, even older than I am, but it's interesting. It's the same. This was started out as a technician, and he was involved or responsible for pulling all that stuff together into Fairfax Water. It's kind of interesting. It's the same situation.
And finally, kind of in our 5-year look here, just looking at the financial program or the financial payments that we make. The one that has changed a bit over the past year or two is capital improvements to DC Water. The Potomac Interceptor and some of their facilities are aging and requiring a lot of repair, and we are in part helping pay for those. They are still developing, I think, the full cost and estimates related to that. So if we take all of this together and kind of look by program, we come up with this kind of 10-year chart of spending. This is net of the outside funding. And you can see by the colors, if you remember what they were, they're kind of down at the bottom in small print, but the brownish orange at the top, broad run, it accounts for an awful lot of the spending, which is logical. And you've seen that through the expansion plans that we've already brought to the board at different phases. And then as you move down, it's kind of the greenish or bluish are the various water and wastewater projects. That includes both rehab replacement and new growth. And then finally, along the bottom, the finance is relatively consistent through the years, and will continue like that. When we looked at this, we also then kind of peeked, how does this compare to what we did last year, what we were thinking? Some of that funding from last year kind of rolled into this year, so we can see there are significant changes or increases. That's where we turn to finance for the 5-year plan to make sure that they are comfortable with this, that it fits our financial plans. But that's a close look at that.
Just to comment on this slide, if you look at the green bars for community systems, right here, coming out to about there, 2033, you have very little. I think that's what we have in the capital program for what we think we're going to need to spend, but none of those things that we just talked about, which could be a huge green bar somewhere. And if not, by 2035, like if somebody came to you today and said, we want to interconnect between Unison and St. Louis, something like that. You don't know about it, you haven't planned for it, but by policy, it could be allowed. So I don't think we need to beat the dead horse, but you don't even have any of those things that you could be asked to get involved in your 10-year cost horizon. Not a deficiency, but just a exposure.
And to that effect, though, would policy-wise and so forth, if that happened, let's say, and the county says, we want you to connect Lovettsville to Middleburg, or what, some huge pipe or what, wouldn't our policies require the county to pay for that? We're not on the hook for that since it's not in our central service area, or is that not your perspective, or is it a gray area? Are we not sure?
I would anticipate that the county would pay for that, yes, based on our policies.
Initially, right? But not ongoing.
Yes, correct.
But not ongoing, and that's.
Yes, the capital
that's kind of-
cost, I would expect, would be fully borne by the county to do these type of projects. So they would not be reflected in here. But then, yes, you would also anticipate that your operating expense would go up when that occurred, yes.
Yep.
Lovettsville to Middleburg would be a municipal to municipal interconnect.
Wasn't a good
And that-
example of.
That's what I've been trying to say. And if somebody, is Mr. Peterson here today?
He is attending a meeting in Richmond, but
Oh,
he's online.
But-
He's online.
Okay.
Yes.
I
am online.
Okay, so the county's policies have allowed communal systems throughout the rural area for years and years and years. Then recently with the proposal for the Waterford to Paonian Springs, the interconnect concept was acknowledged. And so therefore, if you could have communal systems throughout the rural area that we wind up owning and operating, and they could be interconnected, then we are, there is an argument that we are by policy already to be called upon. And so that's where I think we need to spend some time. And I'm telling you, there's an awful lot of people that don't understand that thing that I just said. And so more discussion with other people, bringing Mr. Buffington along to these things would be really helpful from many different perspectives. And I think that's what we need to do.
So starting
And if-
point
if
would
I-
be to clarify whether or not we have an obligation under our existing agreements with the county to pay for the capital expense of connecting, in your example, Unison to St. Louis, or if those documents are on that, say, no, the capital expense of it is on you, or third option, and we're not sure, it's gray, it's fuzzy, it's not clear in the documents. So maybe that's like a first thing. And then what I'm hearing Brian say is that even if the county pays for the capital expense of construction, we're on the hook for the ongoing operation of it, which is 72 million now for ammonia removal in that earlier example. So maybe even just getting clarity, if there isn't clarity.
I feel like there's good clarity
Okay.
that the initial would be paid by the county.
So that's clear in our current
Yeah.
documents with the county.
Mhm.
So there's not a risk to us on that side. The risk would be the ongoing operations.
And any future major R&R
Yep.
regulation
Yep.
type things.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
I would agree with that exactly. I think you just laid it out correctly. The initial capital is covered by the county. It's the ongoing and a future, 40 years, 50 years from now, if we had to rebuild, any kind of, future project like that, that's not new, then that would be our customers. I think there's pretty good clarity on all that.
And so I wanted to acknowledge what Mr. Yudd was saying. So right now in 2026, 27, 28, we're seeing a large chunk of dark green bar there of R&R expense for one of these facilities that was built 30, 40 years ago, or several of these facilities built many years ago. And while, yes, to Brian's point, if more interconnection of communal systems happens now, we may not see that in our 10-year window, but way out we will see. And when more and more and more of these are allowed, that in the long term is going to catch up with us.
Yeah, I think the conversation is we want to raise the red flag that we have noticed that this is continuing, and if it looks like it may even pick up the pace. And so we have noticed that, yeah, you guys pay initially, but then it's on us after that. And that can't be the case. It's not financially sustainable. And so we want to have a conversation about how do we adjust this to account for the ongoing costs, I think.
Point, and special tax district, I think, is a good idea. I mean, it just seems to me we're contracted to build it. County pays for it. It's serving a finite population. Either they own it or the county owns it, and we're contracted to service it. We should be paid as a water company to service it. Why do we have to maintain it and pay for it? It's not our system.
Well, I think
I mean,
the point is
we
we
have the
own some of these. Maybe we don't want to own them, but
But we have the expertise to service it, sure, but why aren't we contracted like anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, the facilities that we talked about earlier, like the parks and the community centers are property of the county. We
Right.
operate them, we invoice them monthly, and we get reimbursed for our service. The other facilities for the community systems, those are turned over to us to own and operate, either by a developer who's built one for a neighborhood or where the county's gone in and helped communities in need.
Well, that's something we could talk about though, is go, look, going forward, we'll facilitate it. You can, but you guys own it. The county can own all these facilities and we'll operate it. We'll do all the stuff, but you guys own
Use
it.
that special tax to use that money to pay somebody to operate it. That should be out in water.
Yeah, that could be the answer. We don't own those, you own those.
Right.
You
Yeah.
contract us like you contract us on everything else.
Yeah.
That'd be an easy fix, maybe.
Worth discussion.
So I got one final summary slide here just to kind of show the proposed spending, what the outside funding really accounts for at this point. Kind of as we've implied, if Paonian Springs or something goes to construction, that's probably millions of dollars that would also be part of our budget, but then also outside funding that we would get reimbursed from the county. But we really think, and I just want to echo what Tom said at the beginning, this was a huge effort by a lot of people, and I really want to thank tons of staff here who helped put together all the individual project sheets that build this from the ground up. This wasn't Brian or Elton saying we have to do all these things. It's really from across the organization that we've identified all of this. So I really think this plan is well put together. It doesn't take away all the risk, but definitely lays the groundwork for, building a reliable, resilient system for all our customers. And so with that, I'd gladly take any more discussion or questions, but here's the motion for the committee.
I would just like to say that the presentation that was done today is outstanding, well constructed, and the staff should be complimented. Even I understand it, which means
Thank
it
you
must
very
have been
much.
well constructed.
Agreed.
Let me I'll make the motion. I move the recommendation to the committee to approve the 2026 capital spending plan as presented and forward to the board for approval in December. And I'm assuming that this should be on consent since everybody's here and has heard everything.
Mr. Sultan, if I may, the operating budget is going on action at December, and we will simply combine the operating budget and the capital budget as one item in December. So this would also need to go on action, please.
Okay. Everybody,
I'll second it,
everybody in
Mr. Chair.
favor? But
Thank you. Jim seconded.
is everybody in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Very good job. The next item is capital spending summary report by Mr. Lipinski.
Can you make that larger? Because I can't see any of the numbers. So this is the spending through October, and we were at about 107 million. Can you scroll up to the table? Because I wanted to see what the forecast was. The forecast was around 116 million, so we're at about 92%. I anticipate that as we come to a close here at the end of the year, that we typically have a little bit of an increase in spending as we get towards the end of the year. So I would anticipate that we'll probably close out somewhere in the 92 to maybe 95% of the projection. Don't hold me to that, though.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. Lipinski. The next thing, financial summary report by Sally.
Yes, we have our results here for October. On this first chart here, you can see our operating revenues total 121.3 million, which is above the forecast of 110 million. As a reminder, 5.2 million of that overage is due to the revenue equalization fee we received. Moving down, I think to expenses. Okay, expenses through October are below forecast by 7.6 million. We've spent 139.5 million. Our ERCs as of October, we have 4,231. Prior year, we were at 3,484, and we're projecting 5,000 for the year. That was upped during our mid-year forecast. And then 55% of our connections are due to data centers. That's your blue bars and circles there. And then capital spending, Tom just talked about that, so we'll buzz by that. The only thing I'll add on that is that of the 107.2 million that was spent, 23.5 million was funded by user rates, and the remainder was funded by availability charges. In October, cash and cash equivalents and investments was 425.8 million, and the weighted average yield was 3.88. Any questions?
No questions.
Any questions?
Thank you. And I have a vote to adjourn.
So moved.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good.
Everyone done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.